All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And today we got a good voicemail on Medicare for All. Cody, can you hit it?
Yeah, of course. Here we go.
This is Matt from New Jersey. I have a question for you. Apparently there's a debate going on about how a public option will do Medicare for all. They say that the insurance companies will kick off those who are sick, and the public option will have to take on all of those sick people, ultimately showing that the public option is not a viable option. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay. Do you want to do yours first, or you want to do mine?
I'll go quickly.
Okay.
Because we're talking theoreticals here, right? So of course it's hard to say for sure what or wouldn't happen. However, the way I understand just how business people tend to think and how businesses tend to be run, I would imagine what we would see happen in a situation like you said. And again, just to reiterate what the caller was talking about, he said that if you were to bring up a public and private option, wouldn't the private option just kick off everyone who's sick because they can, of course, go to the public option? That's one way of looking at things. Generally speaking, I tend to see it kind of go the other way, where you would see the private companies try to find a way to compete with the public option to take on more healthy people, because essentially insurance companies are healthy people paying in. So when people get sick, it could help pay them. So it's easier, I would say, for them to just acquire, businesses want to acquire more customers more than they want to get rid of customers. Because remember, insurance companies also get to do a lot of shenanigans once they get to start billing companies and stuff. So trust me, the insurance companies wants more people paying into them as opposed to less people they have to deal with. I mean, it's part of their business as insurance companies dealing with sick people. I think just from a business perspective, it makes more sense to compete with the public option to get more people paying into you instead of give me your money to pay for my private option. They're going to want to acquire customers. So it could be some pretty simple legislation. I mean, there could be some very simple legislation for just how during the transition period, how they could do that. Because I mean, obviously, if we do see that is where. And it's kind of like when people talk about crimes and they go, well, what if technically they did? It's like, that's why there's a jury and a judge. Because there is the law, but then there's also the human element if you look at things. And I think that's where also the human element will interject and people would step in and say, well, hold on a minute. Because if every private insurance company got together and it was like Black Wednesday and everybody lost their health insurance who needed it, you know what I mean? That is where we have a government. We have these things exist to prevent things like that from happening. I think what we would see more likely is we'd see these private companies now see the public option as competition, and they'd probably start trying to adjust their rates and stuff. Because also you have to keep in mind, if all of a sudden I'm a private insurance company, and a public option comes out, so my customers, my potential customers, could just take the public option and pay little to nothing, as opposed to me. So I have to convince them to pay me money. So even if people are sick and and unless things go really bad for me, I want to keep all the customers I have. You know what I mean? They're now competing in a new market. I don't think you'd see them just shed their customers, because they might never come back, and you might not ever acquire healthy people again later. However, one last thing I want to bring up, if you are saying that a Medicare for all, I do agree. If Medicare for all with a public option is passed intentionally and in mind of gutting the public sector, but subversively instead of through policy, you know what I mean? Because that is what would happen. If the public option was deployed specifically to kill the private option, that is what would happen. These companies, as they were falling into debt, as they were failing, they'd be forced to kick off. They'd be forced to get rid of people in general, especially sick people they're paying in towards. So I think that's one of the reasons why it is important that if somebody were to advocate for a just single payer, no public option only, no private option, only public, I think that is why I'd rather you push it that way instead of try to subvert it politically, because then, as our caller mentioned, that's what you would see. You would see sick people getting kicked off their health care because the government basically said we're going to kill this industry, but kind of through the back door. Does that make any sense, Cardin? I don't know. I'm not rambling here, but that is a fear. Yeah. But again, I just think they'll want more customers, not less, to end my rambling.
I'll tell you this right now. I do believe that healthcare, which is different than insurance, and people mistake the two, but I do believe that healthcare is a human right. However, with that said, I believe free market capitalism, innovation, and entrepreneurship are going to take us to that promised land of that human right long before socialism, collectivism, communism, nationalizing the healthcare system, Medicare for all ever could. And I will back this statement up with facts and also personal lived experience. I want to see everybody have access to good, solid healthcare. However, it seems like all of these candidates, to a certain extent, Andrew Yang included, are trying to cram their healthcare ideas into this little box that Bernie Sanders made 5 years ago called Medicare for All. And they're doing their best to use keywords like public option and Medicare for all and so on and so forth, so they can say that they have a Medicare for all plan. But when asked for details, they're all of a sudden seriously backpedaling. Why? Because the reality is the government has never proved better at delivering certain services and goods to the American people than the private sector. We can make all kinds of DMV jokes. We can make all kinds of bureaucracy jokes. But at the end of the day, nobody actually thinks that a government-run program would actually do a better job than a private program. Now, that does not mean the gross greed and corporate negligence of the pharma companies is off the hook. That does not mean or justify the price gouging of the crony capitalist system that we have. But if there is going to be a positive system that is a public-private partnership in which there is a public option, I'm not anti-public option. I think there is a place for public funds, and it should look something like this. Health insurance companies should be allowed to compete just like car insurance companies and life insurance companies and everything else insurance companies can compete in a free market system. We need to deregulate a lot of the very stupid laws that we've created over the past 50 years having to do with health insurance. One of them being no interstate competition. Nobody says you have to have Geico of California, but you can't sign up for Geico of Nevada. That sounds stupid because Geico's Geico. It's my auto insurance. Okay. But we have all of these non-interstate competition laws that Carter set up in the 70s. And then we capped the amount of doctors that were allowed to graduate, even though that's what's driving up the price of a lot of primary care. The regulation stifling the industry and good people from competing in it while simultaneously empowering gridlock in people that are doing price gouging makes it so that we have the most expensive per capita system in almost all sectors of healthcare in the world, considering the goods delivered. Okay. Now, if you nationalize it, you eliminate the profit incentive for people to come up with fixes for cancer and Alzheimer's and rheumatoid arthritis and all of these consistent diseases that afflict us. You don't want to do that. So what we should do is have all of the healthy people and all of the good companies allowed to compete in an open free market with a certain baseline of regulations. And the public option most likely should be reserved for that 10% or less of Americans that have those pre-existing conditions or those very strange 1 in a million diseases that will bankrupt you. I mean, my daughter's treatments for her cancer as a 15-month-old patient were in the millions. Okay, there's no way a middle class or even an upper middle class guy could afford to drop just all of a sudden $3 or $4 million on saving their child from a choroid plexus carcinomic tumor. Okay. So we need to make it so that all of the healthy people can compete in a free market where the best of capitalism can do its thing, where it can incentivize health, where it can really function well. And then, yes, let's create a system where for certain diseases, certain diagnoses, certain things that can be combated, we do have a public option or some kind of funding mechanism where dollars can kick in, so on and so forth. That's okay. That's good. I think all of us agree on that. The only problem is that the system we have right now is a corporatist system. that's generally run by senators and congressmen that come from very blue states that are very metropolitan and urban. And when we get this crony capitalist corporatist system that only benefits the corporations, where all of the Democrats' friends get waivers, because don't forget, all of Congress, they don't have to be under the auspices of Obamacare. All of the unions, the AFL-CIO, they all got waivers from the requirements of Obamacare. All of the Democrats and their buddies in these major states all get waivers. It's only us plebeians that actually have to be subject to Obamacare. So if we could do away with that, you know what I'm saying? If we could actually have a system that was, yes, a public-private partnership where certain pre-existing conditions were covered under a public option, that would be fine. But I think what Americans are wary of is a continuance of the crony capitalist system that sucks and only benefits a few. Okay, it's better than other places in the world by far, but still, it leads to tragic stories of big time inequality. Okay, and have a public option that's good. That's great. Now, Andrew Yang, I've noticed, has this idea that he wants the public option to be rolled out slowly and basically end up being so good that it chases private business out of the marketplace. And my only pushback to that is, can you name me any other industry in which the government has become involved where it has done such a good job that it has pushed private corporations out of the marketplace? Can you name me a coffee shop chain that the government did so well that Starbucks wasn't going to make more money if they put one in? Can you name me a car manufacturer? Can you name me a service provider? Can you name me anything that the government has done better than the private sector that has ended up delivering that good or that service so well that the private sector decided not to compete? That would literally be like saying the U.S. Postal Service is so amazing and so fast that Federal Express, UPS, and DHL have decided to exit the market. None of us see that happening anytime soon. So a big conversation needs to happen with very smart people about our healthcare. But let me tell you, right now we have a system in which only urban and elitist Democrats and their wealthy friends in the healthcare industry get a say in how it goes because they can afford the lobbyists. And the rest of us are forced to play their game that profits them. None of the good Republican or the good independent or the good libertarian ideas ever even make it to the floor. The best Medicare for all wasn't called Medicare for all, but the best healthcare for all in California bill I ever saw was presented by Representative Steve Knight when he was in the state assembly, that would require all of the CVS's, the Walgreens, the Walmarts, and the Targets in the state to have a super pharmacy with a nurse practitioner that could write prescriptions on site. And it would have driven down the cost of our emergency rooms 85% by offloading a lot of the urgent care burden that ends up in the emergency care centers, and was so affordable, okay, that like the average person would just like literally go to Walgreens super pharmacy to see the nurse practitioner there and get a local generic prescription if they had a cough, do a test, and if it showed up with, you know, something out of their wheelhouse, then they go to the hospital. But anyway, that's 5 to 10 years in the past now, and I don't want to cry over spilled milk, but I do want to emphasize that we don't have a system in which other ideas have a chance to even make it to the floor for discussion, and that's what we need to do long before we decide to nationalize something. That's all I have to say about that. I veer verbose. Cody, I apologize. Do you have anything else you want to say?
Well, sort of. Not quite on healthcare, but a lot of people always ask and reach out to us, and they want to figure out how they can get more involved with stuff going on with the campaign. So I want to let you guys know, if anyone happens to be in Iowa this weekend, there's actually a rally with Andrew Yang in Iowa this weekend. So thought I'd let you guys know. I'll have the link in the description if you guys want to see it. It's, I guess, that at Lincoln's Pub in Council Bluffs, Iowa.
So my man from New Jersey, thank you very much for your voicemail. All the rest of you guys and girls, please give us a call. Let us know what your questions are. We love starting conversations that way. You can call us at 1-833-PSP-RADIO. Once again, that's 1-833-PSP-RADIO. We look forward to hearing from you. This is Problem Solver Politics.